So, Robert, can you introduce yourself to people like Matthias that don't know you yet?
Yeah, so I'm Robert. You may know me as Blue Aquila in Twitter. I've been in the Flutter world for something like 3 years now. I manage Awesome Flutter, and everyone is welcome. I mean, it's a team. So if you find one interesting resource, community, or everyone, and you want to share with the world, you're welcome. I'm also kind of a Flutter artist. I use Flutter, and I write libraries with creative intention. So, and my goal with that, I got two goals. First is make people happy and enjoying. I mean, you know that feeling with art, and also the same tools will be used in the future with what we call the data viz. When you have a huge amount of data and you need to visualize them, you need some much more advanced tool, and that's the next step for Flutter. For my everyday job, I got many jobs. I mean, I'm a project manager, so I manage projects. I'm a backend developer, mainly in Java world, and I use Flutter for a part of my work. And thank you a lot, guys, because the Brazilian community is really strong now.
Let me ask Robert, where are you from?
I'm from France.
France.
Yeah.
Oh, the accent is noticeable. So I was asking myself, where was you from? But our accents are noticeable also.
We are all from a Latin country, so we can mainly understand ourselves.
Yeah.
So the first question, Robert, is when did you become an artist?
I think I started something like 20 years ago, something like this. Because, yeah, the story is really crazy. Because one of the founder of Flutter was one of the founder of the solution I used at this time. It was the graphical framework for Java. It was called Swing, and I was programming stuff with Swing, and I got access to the canvas, and I started to drawing chart and stuff like this, and then moved to processing, and that's how I become an artist, from programmer to data viz to artist.
Whoa. It's an uncommon path.
It was destiny.
Yes.
Well, by myself, I don't have any skills in art. I am totally the logic part, the logic side of the things. If I try to make some layout, some design, I make a scrap.
No, it's the same. It's like two faces of a coin. I assure you.
Maybe, but I didn't already discover the other face of my coin.
Let's talk about this later.
I have to confess, I have 1 feet at the art. I wrote some poetry, but guys will never discover my poetry because I don't have some confidence in it.
Okay. And girls, do girls discover your poetry?
Yes, just go.
So you get the point.
Yes. So, Matthias, can you pick the 3 questions?
Well, I think. Okay. When did you discovered about Flutter? When did you know Flutter? How was your migration to Flutter?
I was working on a complex project. It was a social network engine. So it's not a social network. It's an engine for creating a social network. And everything was code on the back end, but on the front, we need a tool. And it was too complicated to have 2 applications, one in iOS, one in Android. I mean, we can't afford the development team. So we start to Googling and stuff like this. And by complete chance, we find Flutter. And so after something like 2 days, I got the screen working and stuff like this. And I said, okay, that's it. And I never quit.
Why didn't you choose other alternatives like, for example, Xamarin or Hybrid alternatives?
Because previously I've already worked with them for much lighter requirements, and it was a complete failure. Complete failure because mainly for performance. It's difficult. No need to talk about this.
Yeah.
All right.
We all know how this works.
Don't feed this fight, bro.
Yeah, you
All right. And all right, you start in Flutter and you saw how amazing it is. But can you tell us the best and the worst thing that you think about Flutter?
The best thing, really the best, above everything, it's the community. I mean, we know each other, we can talk together, we are kind of friends, we share knowledge. That's the true definition of community. And I'm working with many languages, many tech. It's not always like this. There's a lot of kindness. You see, like we're talking now. So this is the best part of Flutter. From the technical point of view, there's a lot of good stuff. And they will add a lot of other good stuff. So no need to talk about this. We know it's instant feedback, it's material design. It's the tool to get you to the result fast. This is the good part. There's no bad part in Flutter, but there's still a lot of work that need to be done, and it's not easy. I mean, it's already fast to get that much far in 3 years, but there's a lot of parts that need to be set up. For me, currently, and in my very specific case, the most difficult part is advanced rendering. I mean, you can't have access to pixel. It's quite difficult to make parallel rendering and stuff like this. This is the most difficult part for me. But I'm quite confident that in 1 year, we will get a lot of tools to work with Rust, to have parallel rendering or stuff like this. So no bad part.
Right. And before you started to use in Flutter for generative arts, what tool you used to use? Because actually, I think Flutter is a kind of strange, a weird tool to choose to make generative art.
Yeah, you're right.
On mobile, and now it's migrating to web, but its man is mobile. So what did you used to use, and why do you use Flutter now?
I used everything. I mean, like everything. I've been using software like Inkscape. I've been using 3D software. I've been using processing. I've been using procedural language like Clojure. I've been using nearly everything. Even now, I'm learning Rust so I can access new framework. But why Dart? Because it's fun. My objective is not the result. I mean, it's not like I was an artist with a recognition of stuff like this. I don't have diploma. So I need to learn all the maths because I don't understand how it works. And to get my artistic stuff, I need to learn all the maths behind. Since there's no library in Flutter or Dart, I need to write or convert everything. So my pleasure is learning. It's not the painting that is interesting. It is painting itself. It's learning.
All right. So you tell that Flutter don't have an buts, but what was your first pain in Flutter? Can be in generative arts or maybe developing applications.
My first pain,
Yes.
crash. I mean, it's working on your it's working on your emulator. You put it on the device and it crash. And it happened something like I opened some old creative work on my emulator, put it on the device, an iPad. I book an iPad so I can really push. Yeah, it's a very complicated point, but for me, the best device for Flutter, it's not the mobile device. It's the huge screen device. This is where you can push Flutter. So iPad, screen, stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And you put your work on the simulator on your device to get the frame rate, and it crash. Crying. But it's getting better.
All right. Matheus?
I don't know if I understood well this question, but so I will read as it's here. There's something about Flutter or Dart that you miss so much. I think you are compared to the other tools you use it.
Yeah.
Is there in Flutter or Dart that you miss that is not available in Flutter?
Yeah. When you want to put a lot of intensive calculation in Flutter, you have the concept of isolate. But there's also a lot of limitation to isolate. And since I'm working with graphics, I need to parallelize the rendering. And there's a lot of stuff I can do with Flutter that you can do with other software. So this is what is missing for me now, but it's very, very specific. I mean, there's no priority on this.
You need concurrency power, and isolates are not powerful now.
You can use isolate to make some mathematical calculation, but sometimes it's not enough.
This is why you are talking about using Rust with free interface. So Rust do the hard number crushing and Flutter renders in the screen.
Yeah, I'm looking for something like this. But this is a very specific field. I mean, I'm totally confident that the Flutter team will tackle this kind of problem. But, you know, I'm kind of the edge, pushing on the edge, and on very specific case. The case I'm pushing now will be mainstream maybe in 2 or 3 years, not now. So
yeah, of course, because Flutter was designed for simple screen rendering of layouts, mobile layouts, not.
I disagree with that. I think no. I think they start with mobile. They start with mobile, but it's just the beginning. I tell you, and it's not the best for Flutter. Flutter will be much huge than mobile.
Yeah.
And you are doing a great job to pushing Flutter to the edge, even if a specific case, even if a specific use of high concurrence mathematical, but you're pushing Flutter to the edge and discovering things that Dart and Flutter can be better. So it's really important for the future.
Yeah, that's all the fun part.
Cool. So the next question is a question that is a big fight in the Flutter community. It's about state management. Yeah. I think it's the most popular theme in Flutter community. So do you use any state management in your projects? And if yes, which?
Yeah, it depends. I use many. For small projects, I simply use immutable structure. So for small project, it's enough. For huge projects with a lot of page, currently the project I'm working on, there's a lot of screen with form. There are 100,000 of forms. I completely, transparently, and very effectively rely on Mobix. I mean, that's for me. I will never use Block because Block is was a specific use case. It starts when you have the web application and the mobile application, mainly with Angular Dart and Flutter, and you need to isolate the business logic. So it's not for me. And since I do not came from the JavaScript world, I know JavaScript, I work a lot, but I don't want to push React or stuff like this pattern inside Flutter. So I don't use it at all. And I'm very, very, very curious. I'm pushing, please. Rémi Rousselet, hear me. Do your own framework with your own tool and I will use it.
Remy is doing the state notifier. There is value notifier,
yeah.
But outside of Flutter.
So, yeah, that's the point, because Flutter is really great and it has a philosophy, and the Flutter team must stick to this philosophy. But there are other patterns, and it's quite difficult because each time if you put just a part of this pattern and you try to make it work with another philosophy, it's clunky from here and here. But mainly we need to put all this library together to have a concurrent philosophy. But whatever the one you take, it's great.
And you talked about something really important in Block. There is makes sense when you have a web application and a mobile application.
Yeah.
Since Paulo Soares presented in DartConf, I think was 2012, 2017, and here is some rules that doesn't make any sense right now. Like, don't push platform specific, because when you are doing some project that has web with Angular Dart and mobile with Flutter, has a sense, and don't put platform specific code inside Block. But right now doesn't make any sense. So I'm also a MobX lover. So I was one of the guys just search about MobX and brings to Brazil. Brazil community loves MobX. Since we adopt in January, we wrote a post telling about why we don't use Block anymore, and now we're using MobX. This bring a peace to Brazil, because after that, Block was just a fight between egos. The best way to deblock, it's mine. No, the best way to deblock, it's mine. And MobX is just one thing.
Is to not use Block.
I think we need to take care about this point in the community. We need to avoid the kind of problem you can find in the JavaScript community. I mean,
there's a lot of fragmentation between
but the stuff is, if you go, let's say, to the Apache Foundation, you have one project, 1,000 committer. If you go to JavaScript, you have 1,000 projects with one committer. You see the point? So
yes,
let's engage with the Apache model.
Library every day.
So MobX is a great tool. Have a documentation. Have one way to do it, and it's simple, it's fast, and it's enough to a lot of projects. So let's go on.
Yeah, if you have a huge project, I mean huge, MobX is working really, really well.
Well, I cannot agree more. Here where I work, we start with Block. Well, we are yet using Block, and Block simply won't scale. It works great if you are making some self-encapsulated component or something like this. But when things goes big, it starts to break apart. So we are having a lot of problems with Block. Of course, we can simply throw Block away and implement MobX because it's not a trivial task, but we want to do it as soon as possible. Well, turning a little the subject, you said you are from France, you live in France, and how is Flutter being adopted in France? Is it being accepted and used by a lot of enterprises, or it is starting little now?
That's a very good question. It's getting better. It's getting better because we have some talents in France in the Flutter community, and they push a lot. But the main problem with France or Europe or pays from the north is that from the previous years, they put a lot of money to set up iOS, to set up Android, you see? And from the point of view of a manager, you don't adopt the technology because your tech lead came to you and said, oh, this technology is great, you see?
Mm-hmm.
You need to prove that some important company get adoption of these technologies. You need to prove the price point. You need to prove the viability in time. And it was not easy for Google to prove all that. You see? What I find really interesting now is that the company that took the risk to adopt Flutter years ago are now on top. I remember I tell you a real story. 2 years ago, I've been contacted by a company, and they were working on IoT stuff, on the house. And they want a new app with Bluetooth and stuff like this. And I said, okay, we have this framework. It's called Flutter. And what we can do is we put all the logic with C, C++, whatever, And the top application, it's Flutter. And the guys completely rejected the idea. Everyone said it was shit, and we got a lot of bad words. And you know what? The main concurrent of this company is Philips Hue. And the Philips Hue is built with Flutter. So you get the point. Early adopter, get on top at the end.
It's a truth. And here in Brazil, a lot of companies are adopting Flutter. And I think that countries like Brazil, China, India that adopting Flutter a lot can inspire another companies to adopt it too. So I think community is getting bigger and bigger. Flutter is getting bigger and bigger. It's getting better and better. So in the future, Flutter have a good path. So.
And I think countries like Brazil, Africa, India, China, they are the main country, they adopt the technology much more faster. So it's an advantage. It's much more difficult for European company to let go of the past.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The next questions is about the growth of Flutter in the world. Did you expect the growth of Flutter in the world like the present?
Yeah, I think it's we've been in the community. We've seen the adoption for the last 3 years, and my prediction is this is just the beginning, because you need to understand the true target of Flutter is not mobile. It's much more than mobile. You can have Flutter in your Nest application. You can have Flutter in your TV. You can have Flutter in your watch, in your car. You know, at the Flutter Interact, the Google team present their vision for the next year. So they have Fuchsia, the OS that goes, the operating system that goes everywhere. But there's a lot of place where Fuchsia and Flutter will work together. I mean, if you know how Flutter is implemented now, a lot of stuff came into Flutter that are pushed by the Fuchsia team because they are experimenting with new hardware. Remember the Clock Challenge? It was just testing a new hardware. And the hardware now, the new version, work with Fuchsia. So they push stuff like this. So in 2 years, you can have Flutter nearly everywhere. And my point, React will not go everywhere. Judge this.
we can cut this in the cross processing, but
okay. But no. That's my point. I mean, no.
Do you think Flutter will rule the web the way React and Angular rules today?
That's another question, because I'm not bashing React. I'm just telling that React can't go everywhere as easily as Dart can, because Dart is now modified to be the front-end language. You see?
Yeah.
But what is really great with React, it's not the implementation, because there are many implementations, but it's the maturity of the pattern that are behind. I mean, you can have React implemented in Dart. You see? So there's a lot of very, very, very interesting points. And the most competent Flutter dev right now, they also get interest in React, and they try to help the framework to move, to ingest some excellent ID from React, like the portal or stuff like this.
Yes.
So my point is React is really, really good. What is difficult is JavaScript and TypeScript. But we can take the good frame pattern and put it into Flutter.
Yeah.
And now you can find a lot of projects that have in React Native in Flutter. Documentation say this. There's a lot of inspiration in React Native. So
yeah, a lot.
All right.
But just the last point, we need to talk about WebAssembly, because I mean currently the Flutter team is working hard to make the translation work with the current web stack, which is not easy because you have a lot of layers. But they're targeting WebAssembly. When you can push, hear me clearly. If you have React on one point, and if you have Flutter on the other point, and both compile to WebAssembly, the difference is no more on the technology. The difference is on the tooling. It's on the pleasure for the developer to get to the result.
Yes.
Tooling will make the difference, and the capacity of the language. And here we have a huge advantage with Dart, because Dart is typed, and there's a lot of advantage, a lot of analysis you can do with Dart that you can't with JavaScript or TypeScript. You have all the transpilation and stuff like this. So on the long term, this will make the difference.
Okay. I completely agree with you. JavaScript for me, it's declining, not because it has not its role in the web, but because we see that a lot of technologies are compiling to JavaScript but are not using JavaScript directly, because we can't deny that it has a lot of problems. So we see, for example, Reason ML. We see the TypeScript itself is a superset of JavaScript. I remember even years ago, for example, 2012, there was a language called CoffeeScript. It exists yet, but it's not used anymore as it was at that time. So people are seeing that we can do better for web. We can make things more simple and, as you said, more pleasurable to work with. And we will simply have with WASM WebAssembly a target to compile, like we compile today to x86, we compile to x64, AMD64 to ARM. WASM WebAssembly will simply be another one target to compile, and which will simplify much of our work, and we will start to use what we want and what we like, and we will not be limited by a specific technology or a specific language like JavaScript.
Every day born a new way to write JavaScript without write JavaScript. It's funny.
Okay, so to the last question about your work with generative art. It's a beautiful work, and I'm sure that some people that look at your work, see your work, they be inspired by you, by your work. What do you recommend for these people that want to do generative art, to make generative art like you? Where do you recommend them to start?
Okay.
You said that there are a lot of mathematics. There are also the
Yeah.
tooling. What is the beginner's path?
It depends where you want to go. But there's three main resources. First, I've published some times ago a GitHub repository when you can see just in very few lines of code, or you can go to the graphics part and get results very quickly. Then, from time to time, on my Twitter, I put some Flutter pen code, so you can see by yourself, or you can very, very easily, because there's a lot of apprehension. It's not difficult. There's just a wall of apprehension. But I try to put some very simple examples, so you can use them, change the color, and gradually go with your own inspiration. And finally, to be clear, you can go back to the processing.org community and P5 JavaScript, which is the processing equivalent for JavaScript, where you will find nearly all the formula, all the tutorials, everything is there. So there's no barrier to enter there. It's very easy.
And one last question.
Yeah?
Where Blue Aquila are from?
Okay, Blue Aquila, it's a Latin formula. It's the blue eagle.
Whoa.
Aquilae means eagle.
Well,
so it's
nice.
a blue bird. It's a blue bird.
Right,
and we are on Twitter. So there's a blue bird. There's a blue bird on Twitter.
How do you write Aquila?
A Q U E L A A. It's the Latin formula.
Aquilae.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. I'm gonna put all the results that Robert talked about in the description, so you can find Flutter Awesome. You can find the repositories that you can start with generative art with Flutter, CodePens, and these stuffs. So thank you again, Robert, for accept our invitation. And that's it. I'm gonna show for the guys your art that you made for Brazil.
Yeah, go Brazil.
But all right, so thank you for it. And I think that you enjoyed the interview.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It was a good moment. I hope much more people will engage in generative art. And also, I want to see talented people from Brazil. Go on Twitter and show us what you're doing.
We'll do it.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye bye.